So Halloween, it's a good time. I've always been a big fan. Plenty of spooky stuff. I normally have a ton of Halloween decorations, but this is currently the only thing I have in my apartment. But I want to do some pumpkin carving today because it's always been kind of a big thing for me. And I think a lot of the time it's viewed as these like two levels of pumpkin carving where you either, you cut your triangle eyes and your jaggedy mouth, or you have those people that go super crazy and do the like in-depth kind of wood carving-esque features that's like super artistic and whatever. And that's very unapproachable. But I like having this middle ground where you can do something that can be done in maybe an hour, but you can also have a little bit more depth and detail to it. And that's sort of what I'm going to go through today. My general process of doing pumpkin carvings, I'm going to throw a couple up that I've done in the past, which I think maybe I'm holding depending on how I feel like editing this. Just to give an example, but generally I have some random rules that I have for myself, and I'll get into that later. Super arbitrary, but it is what it is. It's kind of just how I've always done it. But we'll get to that in a bit. For now, I just need to get this guy hollowed out. This is a little tougher than I thought it would be. So while I'm gutting this thing, I want to call attention to the most important detail, which is that I am separating out the seeds. I am honestly obsessed with these things as a snack, so I'm going to do a quick cooking lesson sidetrack. So once you get these boys out of there, you want to give them a quick rinse, let them dry off for a minute, then toss them onto a baking sheet, add some salt until you think it's enough salt, and then you add some more salt, and then you do that like 3 more times until it's an excessive amount of salt. Oven to 275-ish, slow roast for like 2 hours, and then turn off the heat and let them sit in the oven for another hour or so, and then you have yourself a very tasty snack. Anyway, back to the carving stuff. I always do a little concept sketch first. It doesn't need to be too much, but it's super helpful to take an image or idea and break it down into really simple lines that you can actually cut out of the pumpkin. Then you just need to transfer that image onto the physical pumpkin. So while I get this sketched on here, I figured it'd be a good time to chat about some of the other stuff I was talking about with like the arbitrary rules and stuff that I have. So one of the big ones is that I don't like doing stencil type stuff that you can buy like cutouts and just put on, and like, they have those little pumpkin saw tools that you can cut stuff out like that. Because for whatever reason, the rule has always been that the pumpkin itself has to be the whole head, which is why the clown sketch, I don't think that is showing up on there, but you just saw it a second ago, is the full size of the pumpkin. And also, I don't know, part of it feels like cheating to do that, but I also tend to be a creative person, so, you do you, whatever, carve pumpkins, whatever makes you happy. I just like doing it like this. Another one of these rules is generally that I don't ever reuse a concept. That one I'm more willing to bet, especially in this case, because I want to do a clown, because I'm planning on juggling for Halloween. I did this last year for the first time, but we get a ton of trick-or-treaters in the place where I grew up. And I can sit out on the porch in like a spooky mask or something and juggle knives for the night. I'll throw up a clip of that here. But that ends up being a lot of fun. And I think that this is kind of on theme for that. But I did do a clown once before, so I am kind of breaking some rules. I made all this stuff up. It isn't that big of a deal. It's more of like, I think it's interesting for people to... Because you get the same people from the same neighborhood over and over again every year. It's interesting for them to come and see something new and not just the same carving all the time. And not only has this one not been seen before because I did it when I was in school, so it's a different crowd, it's not like it's all the time if I duplicate something once in a while. It's also not exactly the same. Anyway, I'm going to finish up this sketch and show you in a second. The idea is that it's not supposed to be easy to see. It's just enough for me to have an outline to carve by. The perfect generic knife for this kind of thing is this fillet knife. I use this all the time. I'm going to start right in the eye. For whatever reason, this is a very tough pumpkin. Nice. I don't have a great way to record this visually, so I think I'm just going to sit here and carve and then flip it around once in a while and show you what I'm working on. But for the moment, this is just kind of going to be like a chatting kind of thing because I don't really know how else to record this, to be frank. Well, I'm Nick, I'm not Frank, but if I were to be Frank, I'm just going to tell some stories about Halloween. So, where I grew up, the towns kind of like stagger when they do trick-or-treat night, which means that a lot of kids can go to multiple neighborhoods, plus it's a fairly well-populated area anyway, even though it's kind of small town vibes. So, we would always get like 400 or so trick-or-treaters on Halloween, which means it was always a pretty big deal. And I was always really into it because I just think it's fun to get, spooky stuff and try and spook some people. After I was too old to go trick-or-treating myself, I started to really decorate the crap out of the house. And then I would also hide in this bush that we had by our porch with a little skeleton mask on and kind of shake the bush at people when they walked by. Which, it's Halloween, it's all in good fun. And it was just always hilarious because a good chunk of people knew I was there because I did it every year. And they would still bring over friends and try and signal to me to be like, "Whoa, come on, get him." But it was just fun to see people's reactions to it. Nobody was ever really upset about it because, it's Halloween. But I think one of my personal favorites, I jumped out and scared somebody, these two girls, maybe 14, 15 years old. And one of them jumped on the back of the other girl and they ran off piggyback style down the road, just screaming for a minute, which is the most Scooby-Doo level reaction I have ever seen to something like that. Although that's a good test of friendship. Whether or not your friend would let you ride the piggyback off into the sunset whenever there's danger about. That is roughly the shape of one eye. So we're making progress. Alright, through jump cuts, we now have two eyes. They're a little lopsided, but also it's a pumpkin, so it's fine. Now comes some of the slightly more interesting stuff. I got toothpicks because one of the things that I think helps take this sort of stuff to a second level is details that can be cut out, but not entirely, if that makes sense. More like popping it out again. So I'm going to cut out the nose in one piece and hold on to it. So instead of just having a big hole there, I can fill it back in with the nose piece and just have it sticking out like a ½ inch from the pumpkin. So it adds a little bit of depth, and I think that looks pretty neat. I am covered in little pumpkin bits. Anyway, so back to some storytelling. I've also had some issues in the past with some Halloween-related things. There was a year where I was trying to set up ahead of time, and I was hanging a bat from the roof, so I was up on a ladder trying to get this thing up, but it had recently rained, so I'm up on this ladder on this wet floor, and the entire ladder just slips and falls down, and I fall from, the top up at the roof height, land on my back on a set of, we have these concrete steps that lead up to our porch, so I land on those and just flop, basically. I somehow didn't break anything, but I couldn't sit down right for a month. But I had another incident one year, again when I was jumping out of the whole bush thing. I tried to jump out and spook somebody, and they reached for a gun. I don't know who brings a gun trick-or-treating, but that was the last year I did that. Because I'd rather not have a gun pointed at me for being too spooky. That was also the year, I don't know how many people will remember all of this. I mean, it wasn't that long ago, but the year that It came out, and it's trying to clean up the hole, and I started pulling out some snot from his nose. Anyway, it was the year that It came out, and there were all those people dressed up as clowns being cited places. So as the guy's walking away, he goes, you know, if you were a clown, I would have shot you. Which is just not what you want to hear. So I have the nose piece. I can kind of clean it up and round it off a little bit. I don't want it to be too loose in the hole, but it doesn't need to be a perfect fit because it's going to be sticking out a little bit anyway. Turn him back around, and a little tough to see on camera, but it does work. So I'm going to roll with that. I might do something else I'm going to talk about in a second to make it a little bit better. I do need to stick a toothpick in it to hold it in place because I just chucked it on the floor. But for now, I'm kind of content. So sticking toothpicks and stuff is one of the main ways to, like, I think anyway, elevate a pumpkin carving a little bit and have those like popped out sections. The other thing that I like to do is just peel skin back in certain areas because you can basically get 3 tones. You can have the fully opened area, you can have just skin, or you can have like the white flesh of the pumpkin. So it lets you get that extra layer of detail, which in this case, I can have holes and stuff for eyes, but I can also do the makeup of the clown by peeling back skin in those sections to make it look like clown makeup. So normally what I do for that is I'll take a box cutter and sort of very lightly score the top of the skin of the pumpkin, and then get like a flathead screwdriver bit, and you can kind of just peel it off. Or like a chisel or something, I mean whatever you have. I'm going to assume most people have a screwdriver. And yeah, it's not too terribly difficult to do. It's a little bit time consuming, especially if you're only using a screwdriver because there's not a whole lot of face to it. But all you're trying to do is get the skin off in that one little section, and if you score it correctly, then it will stop right at those lines and just kind of pop off. So I'm going to start doing that. Alright, so I got the space around the eyes kind of shaved down a little bit. It's starting to look a little more like a clown. Not quite there yet. I still need to do the mouth and a little bit of slots for the hair. But I shaved down the edges of the nose a smidge so that it stands out a little bit better when it's placed in here. And it looks a little bit more like an actual feature instead of just part of the pumpkin again. So yeah, I'm gonna get to cutting the mouth out, I guess. So the other thing I mentioned about, I really like Halloween, and I like doing scares on people and whatnot, but I've never been a fan of like horror movie kind of stuff. I don't do well personally being scared. I need a smaller knife. Smaller knives. Anyway, I don't do well being scared, but I like scaring other people. I get into all the grossness and the evil stuff from Halloween, but I don't like experiencing it myself. I don't know, it's interesting. I mentioned this a little bit in a TikTok that I did, which, if you didn't know, I have a TikTok now, which is basically just recut footage from these videos that's 20 seconds or whatever. I am going to start doing some exclusive stuff on there, so like, a lot of my paintings I'll do sketches first before I do the actual painting, and I never post that here, but I'm going to start doing those on TikTok. So if you like that kind of content, make sure to check that out. It's just Nick Music again. That name is like never taken conveniently. So anyway, I think I've rambled enough for one video, so I'll probably just wrap this up and show you what the final product looks like. Hey, it's big reveal time. Well, it's not the most amazing pumpkin I've ever done, so it's a moderate reveal, but still, that is a clown, if I've ever seen one. The mouth is a little crooked, but I also kind of meant to do that, because I thought it would be creepier. I don't know. The hair, sorta, you can see it. I do like the way that the makeup aesthetic looks on the eyes and everything, with the pumpkin skin being peeled off. It makes it look kind of white. I think it's pretty freaky. I don't know. Hopefully you liked the video. Covered in pumpkin bits. So, yeah, I'm pretty sure that's it. So I guess I'll see you next time, and happy Halloween.